Hi, friends, and welcome back to episode 10 of the Stoked to Have You podcast. As always, I am stoked to have you. And today we're going to be talking about creating for joy rather than perfection. So, I think being in my 30s now, actually, I can definitely speak for this. When I woke up on my 30th birthday, I had this kind of fucking attitude that was so relieving. And it was, well, it wasn't like, fuck it, whatever, but it was more of just like, I'm kind of over letting the small things affect me negatively. Like maybe opinions, or because being a creative and choosing to choosing to do that for work, it's a risk. It's also unconventional. And so it sometimes can be looked down on, or like, oh, I would never do that. Or like, that's just a hobby. And truthfully, you get out whatever you put into, I think, anything in life. But on my 30th birthday, I remember waking up and being like, I have this chance to kind of start new. I have a new decade ahead of me, And when I think about life, I feel like I've had so many wonderful chapters. I've also had some crazy chapters, and this was a very big new one for me. At the time, this was 2021, and I was in a new city. It had been the first time I'd moved away from home, like Chicago. And, I had this very different life. It was very active, I was in the mountains all the time in Georgia. I was with new people. I made new friends. And it was just the reflection of that was beautiful. It really was. And at this point, I had explored a lot of different forms of art. And then ahead of me, I was about to explore a few different forms of art. And part of it was I was just trying new things. So I had been painting. At this point, I had been doing, I'd had Amy's workshop for a few years, and I was still doing pet portraits. I will say, like, starting pet portraits over again in a new city was very hard because I had a lot of really good clients here in Chicago. And I think a lot of people want like a local artist. And so when they move away, it's just different. And not to say that people didn't want work from me. It's just things changed. Now, instead of picking it up in the city, I had to ship it, and that's a higher cost, and accessibility, the whole thing. But I decided to try a bunch of things. I tried doing clay, which I had a lot of fun with. And I think there was a point where, I was working so hard on these pieces, and they were taking so long because it was a new medium that, like, when I eventually did sell some, I was like totally underselling them for the amount of work that went into them. But I did have a lot of fun creating these coasters that I would make out of clay. Some were kind of like this rainbow shape with like tubes of clay. And then also I made these fruit ones, and it was like a slice of lemon or lime or orange. And those were actually a pretty hot commodity. And I just found out when I went to look through my storage unit that I still have like a small box of them. And I'm like so excited because when I move into my new apartment, I'm like, oh, I was thinking to myself, oh, because my mom has the lime ones. And I was like, oh, I really hope I have some. And so to know that I do, I'm like, oh, because I like them. I created something that I knew I would like. But I was also creating things that I was like, it started as like a passion project, and it started as more of just like, I'm just creating this because I really want to play around with clay. I did sculpting when I was in high school. I was big into like into ceramics, and I was like, this, the baked clay, that I was like, this is kind of like a happy medium. I don't have to go to a studio. I can just kind of do this from home as a hobby. And then in a true artist fashion, I was like, I can sell this, And really, I didn't have it for me. It was just all now I'm creating for perfection. Now I'm creating for some type of validation where it's like, people like it. I know I liked it, but I was like, I'm creating for people now, and, taking input and, working shows. And eventually I started doing like earrings. And then the same thing happened with candles, and I started making candles, and then it became a company. And to be honest, it took off pretty well, but I realized quickly that I was like, I like making candles for me. I don't want to make 100 candles for everyone. And they were really good. I used really good ingredients. But because I created an entire brand, and then it was called Ope. I don't know if you're listening and you remember that, shout out to you, because that's a throwback. And it was so short-lived, but we loved it. I still have, so I also created oils, which I still have a box of, and I use it every day. But I was like, I don't really need to be making oil for everybody. I just wanted to make it for myself. But the theme is that I never truly had like an art form that I was like, oh, this is just for me. This isn't like I'm not trying, like I was constantly trying to sell things, and it absolutely took the joy out of it. I was, again, creating for perfection and not for joy, and not like, and when I messed up, I was devastated, versus just enjoying the process. And so I kind of, I slowed down on picking up hobbies, but in 2025, so actually back up. I'm a big YouTube kid. So I grew up with YouTube. I still love YouTube. And I had saved, and now you can laugh, I don't care. But I had saved like how to make a puppet and like a bunch of puppeteer stuff. Like I grew up with like Sesame Street, Jim Henson. I am a huge Jim Henson fan. Also like Mr. Rogers, Lamb Chop, like just sock puppets, hand puppets, Muppets. I'm a fan. They bring me a lot of joy. When I was a kid, they brought me a lot of joy. And I do see like, when you deep dive into the creative process of puppet making, like it's a lot, and it's kind of really cool. And for the most part, like everyone in it, they're just very intelligent, very also athletic. Like, I don't know if you've ever watched like Sesame Street or the Muppets or any of the movies. Everything is like on a stage because there's people that have to stand below to do the puppets. And like, imagine holding your arm up all day. Like, that's a lifestyle. That's a choice. And I don't know. I admired it. Also, Jim Henson is just such a sweetie, and RIP, but I was fascinated. But there was a part of me thinking, oh, it would be so much fun to make a puppet of my own. And yet I still had this like mental block of like, no, like how, like that's not going to make me money kind of thing. And, or like, no, blah, blah. But I still had this like want for creating one. Just, I don't know. So anyways, 2025, I was still in Atlanta, and I just decided I'm going to go to this is when Joanne Fabrics went out of business. And I was like, you know what? Screw it. I'm just going to go get a bunch of puppet stuff. And I did. I remember I spent like $100, and it was about like $500 or $600 worth of material because everything was like 90% off. And I was like, hell yeah. If that math doesn't math, don't think about it. But I had these videos saved. So I was like, you know what? I'm just going to create for me. I am creating purely to satisfy my inner child and to just to be more like tactile and like hands-on. And it's like, I guess, a different form of kind of sculpting. And it's funny because right now I'm looking at the puppet that I made and she brings me so much joy. Her name is Susie. And it really, like, finishing that project, because I had started it and then unfortunately I abruptly had to move, and then she kind of just was tucked away in storage, and she had like eyes, a nose, some hair, and some ears, but I didn't really get to finish her. And like, she didn't have a body. It was just like a head and barely a neck. And I was like, so a few months ago, I went back to Atlanta and I had to go through a bunch of stuff and found her in my storage unit. And I was like, I'm bringing her home, which bringing a puppet head on a plane is hilarious to put through like the x-ray things for TSA. But I did, and they got a chuckle, and so did I. And so I brought it home, and I also brought home some materials so that I could finish her body and her arms. And it was such a learning process that I didn't realize like I needed. Like, I was creating her purely for joy. There was no intention. Like, I do have like this idea of creating a few puppets and doing, okay, and I know how silly this sounds, but also fuck it, you know what I mean? But I love a good music video. Again, big YouTube kid. And I was like, oh, how fun would it be? I mean, there are music videos out there with like puppets and stuff. And I was like, oh, how fun would it be to like make a few just as like again, I like videography and I like the puppetry and like, I love music. I'm like, oh, this could just be a joyful project I do on my own. I don't even have to share this with the world. I think people forget this, is that, and side note, but this is the same thing for therapy. And like, because art is also a form of therapy for sure. But, and as is like exercise, but you don't have to tell a single person you're doing this. Like, I love sharing what I do, mostly because it brings me joy, like sharing things with people. And then it, you know, I get like, I'll post a picture of my puppet like I have, and I've gotten a few comments that are like, oh my God, that looks so good. Or that's so cool. Or like, oh my gosh, I want to make one. And I'm like, do it, go and make it. Like, even if it's a hand puppet, I don't know, or whatever your version of that is, you know? I feel like I have so many trains of thought going because it's just so exciting. But so I made this puppet. I would like to do some sort of like fun music video things. My work is mostly on Instagram and my website, and I don't really TikTok because I tried. You know, when I was actually creating my the coasters and the fruit things and the you know, the clay stuff, I did a lot of stuff on TikTok, and honestly, it's a lot of upkeep, and I just couldn't keep up with TikTok and Instagram and Facebook and my website and this and then events, and it became so overwhelming that it also sucked the life out of me and the joy out of, you know, creating. And so I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna leave it. I'm just gonna stick to one medium or one platform, and that's Instagram. And it also acts as like my portfolio and I finally, after years, I found like a cohesive look to mine, where it makes me feel like it's me. Because I think I'd tried different, editing or like colors, and I was like, oh, this is just, it's all over the place, or it's too this. And now I finally have this, like, this is a cohesive look. It's mine. It's, I'm very proud of it. And I share things that are not necessarily all tied together, which is kind of cool. Because there's always like this little voice, or like the listen to mainstream thing, or listen, like, this is what you should do. And you know what? Do your own thing. I've learned that on social media, like, the best thing that works is to do your own thing and be different, and don't be the same as everyone, because when you are, that's where it's like, that's where you get drowned out, is like, you're already, you're swimming upstream with everyone else. Like, what if you went against it? I don't know. I talked about that in another one. But anyways, so I made this puppet, very proud. And yeah, like, I'm like, oh, I do want to create another one. And this time I want to make it of a specific artist. And I just like, I'm like, oh, I could use TikTok for this. Like, because I do, again, I love putting together a good video. If you follow me, like, I did one, it was a video of my stepdad's car, where I was just taking like angled shots, and then we had a few like driving shots. And I don't know what it is, but I was just like, oh, this would be so fun. I did the same thing for a friend's wedding, where I was like, oh, capturing moments, like, just honestly moments of joy on a video. Like, I grew up, a camcorder kid, and I had a little camera with me, a little, I think it was a little Casio, for a long time, and until it broke. I was not careful with my electronics, but but now as an adult, I'm like, oh, I value video. And if you've ever seen Casey Neistat, he does like YouTube videos and videography as well. One way, or one thing that I learned from him, was to be very intentional with video. So instead of being like, oh, I'm going to try and get the perfect shot, like, I just see it, I shoot it. If it comes out, awesome. If it doesn't, cool. Like, I'm not tied to like, oh, I'm going to take 20 videos. I'm going to get this at a different angle. No, if I see it, I shoot it. That's the shot. And it works. Like, I don't know. He said this in one of his videos, where he's like, I'm not trying to like curate. Like, I'm trying to just shoot what I see. I want to say that's kind of the gist of what he was saying. And it's awesome. I love it. I'm like, oh, I can just, because I've practiced enough now to where I go, oh, I know this is what I want. Or like when I take a photo, I'm like, right there, take it. Now I have one or two of that photo, versus like, oh, I have 40 of the same photo, and now I have to sift through. Like, especially with video, the amount of time that goes into that would drain me. I would die. I couldn't do it. But when I shoot intentionally, I go, and same for like videos on my Instagram. Like, I'm like, oh, okay. I spent a day, maybe I took 6 or 7 small clips, and I can just splice them together. It takes me 10 minutes, and boom, I'm done. Like, same with the podcast. I think I may have talked about this before. It's like, I intentionally record. I'm recording it. Whatever is going on in it stays in it. And I just make sure that I have like my noise reduction on. That's why I bought quality mics. I use my Samsung recorder. Bada bing, baby. Bada bing. And it works. I do minimal editing, maybe here and there at the end or the beginning, but that's it. Same with when I have a guest. It's like, I record that, and then I record the beginning, splice them together, but it's really just like putting them together. I don't have to, there's no fixing anything. I'm not spending, I literally do it on a bus ride to work, and it's awesome. I'm like, oh, I don't need fancy equipment. I can just knock this out. And that's also part of the reason why I did it. Cause I was like, oh, I'm doing this because I enjoy talking to people and like I enjoy talking, but I really love the idea of spreading joy and like spreading optimism and like also sharing experience, because I do get a lot of questions, especially around art, around running, and now about like coffee, which is kind of cool. It's like, what's your input? What are you doing? How did you get there? Why are you doing it? And I love answering questions. So I may do like a questionnaire kind of thing for these smaller clips, because I don't necessarily want to just talk about myself, but sometimes it's things like this that have come to my mind. So, okay, back on topic. So basically what I'm trying to say is creating for joy rather than perfection has become such a light in my life, and being able to, just kind of put everything aside and dedicate a little time to myself has been so important and fulfilling that I'm actively like trying to do that more because I see the value in it. I mean, when I'm not doing that, when I'm not taking time for myself, I do find that I'll maybe resort to like some previous habits, which is, I'm doing things for other people. If my schedule gets busy enough, I go, I committed to that. Well, I committed to that. And then I'm like, oh, but I don't have time for myself. And of course, as I've gotten older, that's when I start canceling on plans. And as much as I love my friends, I have to cancel on them sometimes. And truthfully, they're really cool. I got real lucky with the people that are in my life, because when I go, hey, I am just, I canceled on a friend's birthday not long ago. And I was like, hey, dude, I am overbooked and I am exhausted. I don't have the bandwidth to hang out for your birthday. I'm sorry. And hey, not a problem. She goes, not a problem. I'll see you next time I see you. Like, have a great night. Go get some rest. Like, how awesome. And truthfully, if you have people in your life that are making you feel terrible about having alone time or setting a boundary or anything, like, rethink that relationship. But anyways, I'm not a therapist, so don't listen to me. But also, experience has taught me, take the time for yourself. And if you need to cancel a plan, highly recommend it. There's nothing worse than going out too and being like, God, I don't want to be here, which we've all done it. And truthfully, there are also times where I go, oh, I do not want to be here right now. And then 20 minutes in, I'm like, okay, maybe I'm happy I'm here. That can happen too, It just depends who you're with, I'm sure. But anyways, all right, guys. Thank you again for listening. This was just a little blurb on creating, and I hope that out of anything that you take from this today, 1, take some alone time. 2, enjoy a creative process, maybe that you've abandoned or that you've always wanted to get into. You don't have to spend a bunch of money to get into crafting or some sort of arts. There are free resources out there, or there's you can even go on Facebook Market and find materials of people like, oh, I'm getting rid of a bunch of canvases, or I'm getting rid of painting stuff. I've done it. I had a marker collection that I was like, I use them. I kept like a good handful of them, but I was like, I have hundreds of markers. I had 2 people give me hundreds of markers, like these alcohol based markers. And I was like, I never use them. And like, what a shame to have such a wonderful medium just sitting there. And this kid bought them from me. And I just remember being like, so excited. And then he like sent me a thank you. And then I saw like I ended up following him, and I saw some of the artwork he was producing, and like he's creating such awesome things. And I was just like, fuck, I love that. Like, get it, boy. But there are free resources out there. I mean, shoot, you can sign up for a free art class, or, or even just like a painting class at a paint and sip. And you don't even necessarily have to do the painting that they're doing. You can do your own thing, or they have open studios. Just, get out there and create. Yeah, that's all I'm trying to say. Well, thank you guys for listening. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. And as always, guys, I'm stoked to have you. And I'm stoked to be here. And I can't wait till the next episode. Have a good one. Bye.